going to see who accepts the stream.
Okay, so from now it is recording what we're saying.
This is called a pre-show. Yeah.
Right.
Hot mic, hot mic.
Very good.
Right,
Very
exactly.
good. Twitch has accepted the stream.
Okay.
YouTube has accepted the stream. Facebook has accepted the stream. Are you ready to go on the air?
Yes,
Yes.
that's why I like
Yep.
the show. I feel so
Yep.
accepted after all of that.
Okay, you
Oh,
see
good.
see the timer in the center of the screen?
Right.
When it says on the air, you're on the air.
Okay, and just so that you know, just 1 second before you start,
Yeah.
Richard, that when we're getting towards the end, you know, you might keep a little bit of an eye. I can guarantee you that I will be keeping an eye on that. So at a certain point, I'm going to take back over and just close us out, and then, you know, yeah. So because our goal is 58 minutes. Yeah. So anyway,
Okay.
yeah, that's all.
Are you ready?
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
thanks. Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future, also the home of our friend and producer, Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. And when I also want to thank our hosts at WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative radio station, broadcasting this show for many years now. We appreciate our friends at Buff State, and we thank them. And when I think of thankfulness, I think about our indigenous friends and our friends who've been, you know, enslaved, or, you know, are descendants of people who've been enslaved. Well, more on that later. But how still gratefulness, thankfulness is such a big part of the culture, and it is the recipe really for having the good mind, or being in the state that we need to be in. So, you know, oftentimes to just think about Mother Earth and all the water, the living water that makes life possible, the wonderful plants and animals, the different structures and beauty in our world, and all the heavenly bodies, and all the wonderful teachers, and the Creator, and the love that makes it all happen. And so some people would say Ashe, or certainly our Haudenosaunee neighbors that were on their Haudenosaunee land, the Seneca Anundawaka land, they would say Nyahweh, and then the people say no. So I'll say Nyahweh, and you can say no.
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 Yeah,
No.
yes. Yes, no.
Learning a new language.
Yes, it's just a little bit. So thank you. I'm again very excited about this show, and we're going to be looking at the criminal injustice system, especially locally, and we have two people who know lots about it and are working very hard on it. And there is so much work needed, as we say in the title, criminal injustice. Change is needed. So I'm very grateful to have here these two experts. So one, Sophie Feal, is here from the Legal Aid Bureau, also former board member at the Western New York Peace Center.
Quite a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, that was a while ago, but still.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
still.
still.
Yeah, so thank you for coming,
Sure,
Sophie.
sure.
And we also have Jerome Wright. Hi, Jerome.
Hey, how you doing?
So Jerome, I don't want to brag too much, but I'll start off by saying he's done so much that he just won the Western New York Peace Center's Ultimate Activist Award, because he is a dedicated activist, is the co-director of the HALTsolitary and CAIC programs, and is just very hardworking, associated with Voice Buffalo, doing some teaching, doing a lot of different things as well. So thanks for making time, Jerome, for coming.
Thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to it.
So we'll be talking about the current state, and then what we hope for, and what we need, what we really need to be a healthy community and to have better results than what we've been getting in the criminal justice, or what I'm calling the criminal injustice system. Oh, and I didn't introduce myself, which I sometimes don't. That I'm Victory Ross or Vicky Ross. I have reclaimed my teenage nickname because I think it's so important for us to have some victories, and the real victory, everybody wins. So, and I'm the community coordinator now at the Western New York Peace Center. So, anyway, so why don't we go around just quickly on values? So, when we think about the criminal justice system or the criminal injustice system, what are some of the values that we want to think about and uphold? So, Sophie.
I would say, given what I'm invited to speak on, empathy is a real important value that we need, not just in the criminal system, but all over society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're so right. Compassion and empathy, it just would be a whole different world,
Yeah.
kindness, right? And just that the empathy that drives that kindness.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much. And Jerome, what about you? What's some values that you think of in this connection?
It's ironic that she said empathy because one of the tenets of the programs that I teach is about empathy, in that it's one of the naturally occurring and inbred values that we have at birth, that we seem to
Yeah.
dissipate, that seems to dissipate as we get older, where it should get stronger. And so that's why when you go to, they keep babies in the nursery, they ask you to be quiet, because if one starts crying, they all start crying. And that they don't feel the pain of what the one that really started the crying, that they empathize with their pain. And we don't even know who we are then, and we already act empathetic. We've gotten so far away from that. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but when I was thinking about values, empathy is the most human value that we have.
Right.
And I think the value is to treat each other as a human beings. I don't
Right.
care who you are or where you're at, what you did or didn't do. If we stop conjugating ourselves in all these different ways and first look at each other as human beings, that is the value. Because I don't think there's any other species on this planet who has empathy, who's born with it, or who exemplifies it in their daily struggle. Most of the world works on an animalistic, point of view, where they gotta eat, kill, and live. We supposed to be above that. And empathy is the one value that's supposed to keep us above that. And if this injustice system had any empathy, we wouldn't have a criminal injustice system.
Well, first of all, that's so beautiful what you said, and I really, really appreciate it. The one thing I will say, though, is that, I need to say that dogs definitely have big time empathy, and that actually, it's sort of, it's both and. So in a way, that's true what you said, but in a way, there are, even though animals are eating each other, things like that, there's still a certain, so there's some realities about, survival, but there's also empathy. There's also, when somebody has helped an animal, I've been seeing all these videos they're showing of, if you help an animal, how they love you, how they remember you, and all of that. So, or maybe it's gratefulness that is.
Loyalty, I
That's what
think.
I was going to say. I don't want us to get. This is
No,
not
I
the
don't.
animal
No,
channel.
no. It isn't the animal channel, but it's about. But it's about. It's in us. It's a natural, and it is very human, and it is. I think that your point is so important too, about what is developing. What do we develop in people? What are we strengthening? Are we strengthening their empathy, or are we reducing our empathy? And I think we're definitely going in the opposite direction in so many venues and ways. So I want to.
Can I add one more thing about the criminal justice system, as far as that is concerned?
Sure.
We have a president elect who is a convicted felon, right?
Right.
Got more charge, and I'm formerly incarcerated. Got more charges than I ever hoped to have.
Right.
So the value system has shifted, because there was a time when you could not even think about running for office when you were under some form of investigation, charges, or whatever.
Right.
So when you talk about empathy, all of that has eroded culturally
Right.
because this is the situation that you have people now who can't get a job because they have a criminal conviction,
Right.
as minor as it may be, and then you have the person who's going to basically supposed to run the free world who has at least 34 and has pending charges that can make that number go up exponentially. That's where this system is at.
So thank you. That is a very big point too about what's going on, and that sort of leads us into the what's going on section. I want to say for values, I want to. I think it's always good to remember truth and love, and love really is, that motivating factor for compassion, for empathy, for that regard for other human beings and treating them, as one human family or one, creation that we are all in together. And truth being the actual fact. So consistency is really important. So what you were just talking about, there's two criminal justice systems, that very
Well,
much
they're all-
so,
yeah,
there's for the rich and then
There's
there's for
always been,
everybody
yeah.
else, it's a very different story. And only how many black marks do you get that have nothing to do with what you may or may not have even done? Right, so we'll get into that as we start. So we can start to get into that. I think we're starting to get into that. So if we could just go around on how do you see the criminal justice or criminal injustice system, the way it's functioning right now, sort of what happens, and if you want. Because we're using this talking circle, I keep going to Sophie first and then to you next. So I think we'll keep doing that just for a little bit. But
Well,
What
as
would
you
you say?
know, I mean, I am part of a kind of a Buffalo group of people who belong to a much larger coalition of New Yorkers
right,
who are involved in trying to pass the Treatment Not Jail Act.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Treatment Not Jail Act is an act that would affect those with mental health issues and substance use disorder in the criminal justice system so that they could get treatment. And so that is one of the ways that we can improve the criminal justice system, is to recognize how many people in that system suffer from either a mental health diagnosis or a substance use disorder. And unless we address those issues, as well as other issues in their lives, we're not going to, they're just going to keep coming out of jails and the criminal justice system and repeat this pattern that they know and they live by.
right. So since you started, do you want to say some more about? Maybe we'll go at it that way. Of start with these programs, the
Right.
programs that or bills that we're talking about. So
Well, as
go ahead.
background, I can tell you that Buffalo City Court was a pioneer in the state in creating first a veterans court, a drug court, and then an opioid intervention court. Those are specialized parts within the court system for people who qualified to be diverted from the normal system. However, the system as it exists now is not ideal. And Treatment Not Jail, an act that was sponsored by Jessica Ramos from Queens, who's running for mayor of New York City, and Farah Souffrant Forrest, who I think is from Brooklyn. And the idea is to make it easier for people to get into treatment, as well as making treatment courts throughout the state more consistent,
Right.
and making sure that they're all adopting evidence-based treatment that is accepted by clinical experts, and that includes harm reduction. Because in the drug court and the mental health court in Buffalo, at least, we don't see harm reduction being used. And we know that harm reduction is clearly what clinicians recommend for the treatment of at least substance use disorder, and particularly opioid use disorders.
So, and I just want to say that one of the things that you know, in your plank to Partnership for the Public Good, one of the things that was said in there is that, you know, that the rules are different and the clientele is different in those different courts, so that back to what we said about people do not get treated the same. So somehow opioids, you know, there's a lot more sympathy about opioids when other drugs are there's not the sympathy. And again, you know, that's a racially
Yeah, I
divide.
think what people have recognized, who have looked at the issue, is that at least I can say in Buffalo, the opioid intervention court recognizes harm reduction. In other words, methadone,
Right.
And other recommended strategies. And people have noticed that the opioid courts in the state tend to have more white people in them, whereas
Right.
the drug courts tend to have more people of color. And there is not a recognition of harm reduction, and it's still kind of operating on a system where you don't get better, we're going to sanction you. In other words, you relapse, we're going to sanction you. And that is not appropriate with substance use disorder. People relapse.
Right.
And we have to start recognizing that people with at least substance use disorders have a disease, much like diabetes or other diseases. It is not a moral failing. It's not that they just don't want to get better. It's a disease that affects their lives. And with diabetics, you get people's blood sugar that goes high and low, and and it's the same with people with substance use disorder. They will relapse, and part of harm reduction is recognizing that process, that it's not a straight line from an addiction to abstinence. And there's a lot of up and downs, and the way to help people is not to punish them or stop treating them in the medical profession because they're not complying. It's much more keeping them engaged in the treatment, and harm reduction has shown to help that.
So, so in the back, so I want to ask Jerome. So, what's your thought about that program, and you know your experience, how it of what you've seen in the criminal justice system? How does it relate to that proposal?
I'm gonna bring this. You hear me?
Yeah, yep, we can hear you.
I know my screen is frozen here, but I don't care. You need to
That's
see me.
okay. No, you're good.
I'm gonna
Go
bring
ahead.
this. I'm gonna bring this right into our front door here in Buffalo.
Right, please.
The sheriff's department has said
Yes.
that at least 57% of the people that they
Right.
currently hold are there for diagnosed mental health issues. They
That's
have
right.
them. So we're talking that number, but we're not talking about the number, maybe 10 to 15% more who are undiagnosed or borderline, or who as a result of incarceration develop some type of mental
Right,
illness.
right.
So we're talking that. And then you talk about another 20, maybe 25% who have significant alcohol and substance abuse issues, right? Who
Right.
need, as the bill says, who both these categories need treatment and not jail. They're
Right.
not criminals. They are people suffering from various maladies that impact their lives negatively, that they have treatments for, that punishing them is diametrically opposed to. That putting them in jail and thinking you're going to get the treatment is like as asinine as it comes,
Right.
because jail is first of all concerned with control and security and safety, and less about care and what treatments are about. So right here in this community, our jails would be almost closed. At least one of them could close
Right.
up.
Oh,
if if they had treatment, not jails, as the law of the land, because people would be diagnosed and then getting sifted into treatments. That she said about this, the revolutionary drug courts. I remember Judge Roberts being the one starting veterans courts, and it is a beautiful thing. But
sure.
again, the inescapable drama around racism is really the issue.
Yes.
Because I remember when opioids, it was treated criminally until soccer moms and hockey dads
Right.
started to experiment with it. Then it became a social disease where we got harm reduction and all these other things for. So listen, a system cannot fail those it was never built to protect. And that's what this criminal in
Oops.
Oh, we've lost him, and
Oh,
he's so
Your
dear.
connection
articulate.
died. First
Well,
it
he is.
froze, and then it
Well, so let us continue on. Hopefully, you can add him back in when he comes. And I'm going to take this opportunity to say, I don't even know if you know. You probably know that I'm a qualified clinical social worker
You
and a
mentioned that
licensed
to me.
master
Yeah, I
social
did not
worker.
know that. That's
so,
great.
and I used to do family therapy
Okay.
as a mobile therapist. But what I'd say, I mean, when even the sheriff is saying 57% of the people
Yeah,
have
I think it's.
mental
I
health.
have the figure 59, so it's very
Okay,
close.
59
Yeah,
or whatever it is. And to me, I would say even more
probably.
of them.
Probably.
And also when you say when we start talking about drug issues, very often the dual diagnosis is there for a
Right.
reason because
Right.
people try to self-medicate
Right.
because it's about broken alert systems. It's about a trauma response, and that trauma can come any one of a number of ways through it's either it could be intergenerational trauma, it could be childhood trauma, it could be shame, which is we live in a shame-based society, so there's a lot of shaming that goes on, and shame is the subtle trauma that people, you don't see an actual incident or something necessarily, but it can be a very middle class thing, or it can be a racial thing. There are so many ways that shame enters in, and then people are really on being attacked from within.
Yeah.
Because their negative messages are just ingrained in their brain. So, and then lastly, stress. That is just this real stress of people's lives, especially when we have the worst income and asset distribution in the developed world that has only continued to get worse. So there's a lot of reasons, there's a lot of things that people are grappling with. And when even the sheriff is saying they need, these are the issues, are about mental health and
Well, they don't want to be
substance
treatment
abuse.
providers, and they shouldn't be treatment
Right.
providers. It's not their calling. It's not what
No.
they're established to do.
Right.
One of the unique parts of treatment, not jail, of course, is that it would open this option to more people, because historically people have been excluded from treatment courts for certain crimes or felonies and things of this sort. So that would be, we would cast a wider net to get more people into the treatment courts. The bill has some really good support right now. It has been supported by the New York City Bar Association, the New York State Mental Health Association, and we recently were told that we are on the New York State People's Budget for 2025, and that is a budget created by the Black, Puerto Rican, and Hispanic and Asian Legislative Caucus. So that's good news. Now, in Western New York, we only have gotten the support of John Rivera as a co-sponsor. Kennedy was on board, but as you know, Kennedy is no longer in the state legislature.
Right.
So we need to work with our Western New York delegation to get them on board. There's a big lobby day being planned by the Treatment Not Jail Coalition on January 21st. People will be going to Albany, a busload from New York City, and then probably from other corners of the state, more individually. to gain more support, and we're hoping this is our year.
So I can say that the Western New York Peace Center is definitely supportive, and I'm sure Deidre would want to sign on to this because it's very clear, and it's in sync with so many things that we've been working on. In terms of the criminal justice system, so Jerome, when he comes back, when he'll talk about the HALTsolitary. So I think he might be back. Jerome, are you back?
I'm back. I'm
Oh,
back.
good. You're back.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about the treatment court and how that, how that's in sync with so many other things that certainly the Western New York Peace Center, as well as very much so, but Voice Buffalo, HALTsolitary, and community alternatives to incarceration. What's the community alternatives?
Center for Community Alternatives.
Center for Community Alternatives. Thank you. That was the one I was trying to say. And then, of course, there are other groups that. So why don't you? Maybe we'll just segue into talk a little bit about whichever one you want to start with to do with HALTsolitary, and/or also no new jail.
Well, I'll quickly start with HALT because that is still something that I want to let. I mean, Sophie probably knows this. Just because you get a bill passed and it becomes law doesn't mean that it's
Right.
Well,
you need money.
well, you need money, but you also need them to implement it with not only the letter but the spirit of which you wrote the law. And HALT is another. Yeah, HALT is a classic example of that. They fought HALT tooth and nail until it was passed. And now in 2025, we're still having to fight for the full implementation. I wouldn't say that it helped no one because thousands of men and women got out of solitary, were put in population, things, but they do not, and they are not doing the law as it is written.
Right.
That's what
And there's several lawsuits, some of which legal aid and the Prisoners' Rights Project. We've had 2 suits we just won against them not following the due process. See, everybody wants to make HALT about how much time you spend in a cell. It also has due process implication. It also has monitoring and reporting things that they're not following and don't want to follow. But let me tell you this. This is why I say injustice system was such a right thing. Here's a system where the laws passed. I was in prison for a law I violated. They're violating the law every day. They don't implement HALT, and nobody's going to jail.
Right.
Nobody's being punished. And while at the same time, the law was made to protect people's sanity, their lives, by keeping them from being tortured. So that means we still got people being illegally tortured.
Right.
And the law says that they shouldn't. And these are law enforcement people. They're supposed to be enforcing the law, and yet they are abrogating their responsibility every day by not doing what they're supposed to be doing by following the law. And that's just with HALT. So we're still fighting that. Same is happening with no new jails. Okay, I don't consider it a victory that the sheriff has said he decided that it was too cost effective. It was going to be $800 million. Cost wasn't the problem. I mean, cost was only part of the problem. The real problem was the community did not want it.
Right.
The community did not want it. And they came out in droves, packed the Meriwether, packed the downtown library, all saying that money could be better spent somewhere like where we're talking about more mental health beds, more substance abuse beds, more harm reduction centers.
Right.
All of that things, and then we wouldn't need a new jail because those people would be getting treatment and they wouldn't be in the jail. So you wouldn't need a new jail. You wouldn't need to. Now, I'm going to be totally honest here. I'm not for jail at all. I'm an abolition at heart. But I do realize that we have a system that we got to work in right now. And we need to ameliorate people's issues right now. Right. And that's why I fought for that. But for them to now surreptitiously decide that they're going to follow what they want to and not follow what they want to, that is criminal.
Right.
That is criminal.
Right.
So
Yes,
they want to
that's
build a new jail, but they're not even comporting themselves like responsible, administrators in the current 2 jails that they're running.
Right.
We got lawsuits that's paying out
Right.
millions of dollars.
Right. No, it's been so plain for. I want to bring it back to. Well, before I even moved to Buffalo in 2007, but when I first moved, it was already brewing of, from Sheriff Howard, and then all the deaths. We had the highest death rate of any upstate facility in New York State, and we were on the list of some of the worst. We were under
even worse than
watch.
Rikers.
Well, that's why I said
Rikers
no,
was
One
upstate.
of
I
upstate.
said
Okay, yeah,
upstate.
yeah.
I said
Rikers was number 1.
Rikers is
but
bad news.
After Rikers, we
right.
were after Rikers, and that has not changed. If anything, the rate of people dying has gone up, and they are under the care. So it's partly about it matters what you think you're doing. So what they want to do now, they say, oh yeah, we like to give them what they need while they're in jail, right? That's what they're saying. There are people who are going, so they have, Peace Prince being one of them, where people are going, and but it matters what you call it and what you think you're doing, because the punishment model is not the same as a treatment model. It's just not. And the buildings, the way they're set up, everything about them are not set up. And as you said so well, Sophie, that people, they're not trained, the guards and the whole, what I always said, it's a sick building. So the people who are working in there, the people who are living in there, it's a morass. It's very, it's just so much of disrespect and difficulty.
Can I add one bit of levity here? Because
Yes.
I don't want, it seems every time we talk about this, they want to parse it as us against the cops, us against law enforcement, us against the system. No, because I want to make it clear
Please
to people listening.
Yes.
It's us against all those wrong things about the cops, the guards, and the systems that we're against.
Right.
There are good men and women that work in there, and I know some of them because I was in there.
Agreed.
That's not the issue. The issue is that this system continues to perpetuate oppression and harm and death on the citizens of this country, particularly Black, brown, and poor people.
Right.
It has not abated, and like you said, it went up. But see, they have a better PR machine now, and they think that they can get these sound bites and make it look good. But listen, they were willing to spend $250, $500 million to build a jail, and we don't even have that. Jefferson Avenue looks worse today than it did before that murderous, coward racist killed our 10 people over there.
Right.
Why is that? That money should be going to community-based organization, to a community responder program, to something for the youth. The youth, you wonder why kids got guns and run around doing? They have nothing to do. They have no jobs.
Right.
They have no community centers.
Right.
They have no basketball. They have nothing. What do you do? So nothing from nothing leaves a problem, and that's what's going on. And this is where this money could have gone.
So I want to go back to what you said about the No New Jails campaign. Well, first of all, I could just mention parenthetically, when the legislature, one of the public hearings that they had, listening sessions or whatever they were calling it, where I couldn't stay, and then you were my anger interpreter.
Yes.
They said, well, I said, could you read my letter that, my statement? And they said, well, we can't read it, but you can give it to somebody and they can read it. So I gave it to Jerome, and Jerome was my anger interpreter, a la Key and Peele. So anyway, the community, we fought very hard to get them to not do a feasibility study, but to do a needs assessment. However, they did not do that.
What they did, they did.
They called it that.
Before they completed anything, and the numbers came out, from their side, the comptroller's office and all of that, that it was going to cost upwards of almost $1 billion.
Right.
They could no longer justify lying to the public because they had just done a bunch of listening sessions, focus groups they call it, trying to explain to people why it's such a necessity, why they wanted to do it. And in the midst of that, the numbers came out that the paltry $250 million that they were talking about earlier was going to balloon to almost $1 billion, and there was no way they can justify it. But instead of justifying it by saying the community came out and does not want this, they use the numbers to say that's why they're not going to do it. And they're saying, well, they're going to try to find some private investors to put the money up to build it, but they're going to run it. Last I heard, at least in New York State, there was no private investment in the correction system, and that was illegal by law. But since they break all the other laws, I can't expect that this one might not be broken as well.
It is scary. It is scary. So, Sophie, what do you think of some
I'm
of
thinking,
those?
I have a number of thoughts. I think as a society, we've always resisted changing our criminal justice system. We have this idea that everything is punishment. We have to punish people. We don't acknowledge the possibilities of restorative justice and how successful that has been in
Yes.
with certain issues, treatment for people with mental health
Right.
diagnoses or substance use disorder. We just don't want to look at anything else. I mean, we still are practicing capital punishment, something that's outlawed in Europe. So I think there has to be some mass movement of some sort to convince our society that this has not necessarily been effective, the
Well-
way we have done things.
And not only, we know it's not
Well,
effective
yeah.
because of the recidivism. So the
Right.
recidivism just says, and we know that, the recipe for, or the, proof of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, because we see that people are more likely, the recidivism is very, very pronounced. And so that's why, because people are being damaged by that system. They're not being
Oh, the
helped.
system is damaging.
The
I mean,
system
we were
is
talking about people
brutal.
who work in the system.
Even the people who
they
work
are
in-
traumatized
Exactly.
from their work as well. I mean, it's not
Exactly.
to say that that's not affecting them either.
Right.
The
I'm
model
glad
is
you brought
just
that up. No, I'm glad you brought that up because, again, they want to parse this as us against them.
No.
I have always
Right.
said, if I'm in there, that staff is important to me because they're responsible for my care and my custody. And if they're not right, then I can't possibly be right. The other thing is they have the highest rate of alcoholism, substance abuse, suicide. You name the social ills, they have it. Why? Because it is such an oppressive and
Right.
abnormal environment that nobody should be in. She talked
Exactly.
about restorative justice. They know that solitary confinement creates mental illness. They know that solitary confinement exacerbates existing mental illness. They know this.
Right.
Yet they still, and then there's a law that said nobody with mental health illness should be in solitary, and
Right.
they still do it.
Right.
If you go to the county jail right here, the holding center out in Alden, you'll find somebody in a solitary confinement cell who has a diagnosed mental illness.
Absolutely.
And we're just starting to recognize that sending the police into situations where people are having
please.
mental health issues is not the right answer. And there we come into, community response or
Right.
responding to situations with mental health experts. I mean, I have represented people in the court system where a poor grandmother is calling 911 because her grandson is acting out in a bizarre way and she just wants to get him help or she wants it to
Right.
stop. And then next thing you know, they're in the criminal justice system and grandma's telling me,
dead.
I never
Or
expected this.
exactly.
I didn't want him
Or dead,
arrested.
right.
Or dead, yes.
Yeah, or dead.
And speaking of deaths, we know that people who come out of incarceration who went in with substance use disorder are the ones that have a very high death rate from overdoses, because obviously,
Because they don't know what to do. Because
Well,
the
they're-
treatment, they need treatment. No, because they need treatment, not jail. Because you know what they do? They tout this MAT program, medically assisted, and it's given in jail. First of all, you can't get it as soon as you get in, which if you on some substance you need it, you get kicked out again if I just want to say this, and I know maybe just a little off the topic, but you said something about relapse that I want the world to recognize. Relapse is a good thing because an addict feels that they cannot stop.
right.
Relapse means that you had to stop in order to relapse. So you know you can do it. The question
You're on
is
your
for how
way.
long
It's
you can,
you're on your way.
Right.
Right. You're
so
on your
don't
way.
tell me about relapse, punishing somebody for relapsing if they've been clean for 6 months, have a traumatic situation, or go through something and take a relapse, and then you're going to discredit everything they did and now criminalize them, lock them up. That's why I said no. This system, it's
Well,
not failing us. It's built. Listen, the system is not broken.
Thank you.
The system is accomplishing the goals that
what it was set up to.
set up.
Yeah.
Now you just brought up, this was one of the things in our little plan of show that I wanted to talk about, because you're bringing up it brings it up to me, the 13th Amendment. So the fact that when you say, well, the system is working, and you always say that the system is working just as it is meant to, and it's written in the 13th Amendment that, yes, there's an abolishing of slavery, except if people are being, held for criminal activity.
Yeah.
So, and who's deciding who are the criminals?
Yeah.
And the ways that's decided, and the fact that people of color are geometrically more likely to end up in jail for the same or lesser crimes, and who are set up and who have all the I mean, there's just so much that is broken, call it broken or call it unbroken, but
It's not
I mean,
broken.
Okay,
Please
so
don't
I'm
say
sorry,
it's broken.
but it's wrong. It's just wrong.
I know I correct you on that. I want that to be clear, because if something is broken, there is the ability to fix it. You cannot fix what they're doing because it's not broken.
But
You have to change the entire paradigm.
Right.
Well, yes,
This
exactly.
does
You
not
have to
work.
start from. You have to start
Right.
from a different perspective.
well, that's why I said wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong is really
Wrong.
more of the correct word.
Well, let's not say
But-
broken, please.
Okay, but it's, bad. Whatever you want to say about how bad, how really destructive and negative it is. So there's so much, and you were talking about the resources. One of the things that always gets me is Fear Inc. is what I call it. But those are the efforts to control, intimidate, incarcerate, or even kill. So that means the police, the carceral system, the military, and all of those, where violence is the answer. State-sponsored violence is supposedly the answer. And what it is, it's the answer to maintaining an oppressive, unjust system with violence to keep it in place. Now, those are things that, we can change because we can see how it doesn't work. So in every one of those arenas, it actually causes more harm. So the veterans that come back with so much trauma that, and end up oftentimes working for the police department behind a gun again when they're trained for a war situation and for killing people. They're trained to kill people. What you said about empathy, that our empathy prevents us from killing people. And so when that has to be a learned skill to kill people. Otherwise, people can't do it.
Well, humans, as we know, differentiates us, going back to our first topic,
Right.
from animals is our ability to be creative. But unfortunately, we've used that creativity to find ways to destroy each other. We've
Right.
seen it time and again throughout history,
right.
what people come up with to cause harm. It's,
And the last piece I want to say about that is then they can't shovel the money fast enough at the police. So look at every budget And every budget is a value statement. And where does the money go? To the Fear Inc. To Fear Inc., to the people behind a gun or behind the, oppressive, violent, or at least threatening stance. And then the things that would actually help us, like jobs programs, more education, cultural, community, health care, and back to help with our mental health and substance abuse issues. Those are key things that would help us as a community. And those things, we want to prevent. It should be crime prevention. It should be mental health breakdown
So-
prevention.
Well, we know that works with healthcare. I mean, preventing is a lot
Right.
better than curing when someone has gotten sick. It's much more expensive.
Right.
But see, you know what we missing here again? Back to that specter of racism. I
Right.
guess I gotta
Right.
be the guy to call it out.
No.
Is that because listen to
Oh,
this.
I agree.
What you're
It
saying,
is the
everything
racism.
you're saying is right. But look what we uphold. And I know you're an attorney, Sophie. My daughter is too. So I'm not
Oh, good.
lambasting attorneys.
No.
I'm saying you guys stand behind a fraudulent document. We're talking about the 13th Amendment. We said we abolish slavery, except, and it doesn't say you had to commit a crime. It said you had to be duly convicted. So whether you committed it or not is not. That's why they don't seek the truth in court, because they're seeking conviction. Because once you're convicted, then you're a slave. That's
Right.
it. That's that.
Right.
But let's think
Yeah.
about it. A document that was written by landowners and robber barons that didn't respect women.
Right.
Didn't see women as citizens, didn't see African Black people as human, that if you were, even if you were poor and you were white, you weren't being considered. So we hailed this document as the greatest freedom document in the world, and it's rife with racism, oppression, and all the things that we say is a good document not supposed to be based on. And that's what the law is. The reason why we have police were made to bring back slaves. They deputize people to go and hunt down escaped slaves. When that is the foundation of your business, it's going to permeate. I don't care how many different iterations you have, it's still going to be the same thing. Last point on that. If this system was about anything other than what it's doing, you know why they kill innocent Black men all the time? Because every day, every week, these officers have to go to the range and shoot at a target that is a silhouette of an unarmed Black man. It could be any color in the world, but they make it an unarmed Black man so that if I'm trained every time to shoot to kill this, you think when I'm confronted with that figure, that silhouette in real life, that only thing that triggers in my mind is shoot to kill? That's why you never see white guys get killed in these situations that a Black guy will get gunned down in.
Right.
Because the picture's not the same in my eye when I'm firing at that silhouette of the Black guy and I'm standing here looking at a white guy. Not the same.
Well,
That's racism.
Well,
that's
There's no
racism.
doubt. There's
and race. Well, there's the fact that it's a Black silhouette, but there's also just the plain old racism.
Yeah.
That if you want to call it implicit bias, if you want to call it racism, if you want to call it whatever you want, and there's a fear factor. So that racism is, the fear factor is in there with the racism, or maybe a hate factor. I don't know, but what I do know is the result, what they've seen actually, the numbers say that there's two kinds of people who are most likely to be killed by the police, and there's going to be, so like you said, unarmed Black men, top of the list. And up there also is armed white men. So armed white men who were actually trying, which is a totally different thing. So, and the ways that people get off the qualified immunity and everything else, there are so many structural things that keep the racism in place, that keep the criminal injustice system in place. So I want us to move on to a little bit, or not a lot bit really, because this is a big piece, is how people can help and get more involved. So what do we want to see people do? What are we hoping, how can people, get in touch with with those various campaigns, or
Well,
what can they do?
Treatment
so go
Not
ahead.
Jail, you
Yep.
can get involved by going to our website, Treatment Not Jail, or contacting, and I'll read it here, tnjcoalition@gmail.com. You can call your legislator, state legislature, to support.
It has to go to
act.
both houses of the legislature.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
Assembly
The
and the
Assembly
Senate.
and the Senate, right. So you can call those folks and get them on board. Again, Assemblyman Rivera is the only person right now who has expressed support from
As
the
a
Western
former
New York.
cop, that's, yeah. But the fact that he's the only one really surprises me.
Well,
So-
it was Kennedy too, but Kennedy is no longer in the state legislature.
Well, have you talked with April Baskin yet?
Not yet, but I did tell the people in New York City, because they may not be as aware, that that's a really important person to get to under the circumstances.
Right, and there's-
they don't know the landscape up here as well as we do.
Sure.
So yeah, we've been trying to let them know, where to go. We had spoken at some point. I had been involved with talking to Monica Wallace, but she was in
Right, she's
the
gone.
kind of, she's gone. She was in the fight of her life, I guess.
Right.
And this is what happened. Who else? Sean
Sean,
Ryan never
talk-
came around.
Now, Sean, so there's other similar sorts of bills that we haven't even talked about, the elder parole or the,
Fair and timely. Fair and timely.
what is it called again?
Fair and timely parole.
Fair and timely, thank you. Fair and timely parole. And I know I've been in a couple of lobbying sessions with Sean Ryan about that, and he was not, or first of all, he wasn't even there. Actually, that's the first thing. Can you even sit down with them?
And so usually they're aides,
Yeah, so oftentimes it's the aid, but people think they're progressive, but are they really progressive? And so
Well,
I
people
want to
don't
say,
like it.
especially
Yeah, the criminal
for
justice system is, has got deep roots in this country. Like Jerome
Right,
said, back to the
right.
13th Amendment. I mean,
Right.
those are, that's a huge weed you got to unearth.
Right, and we've seen it. We've seen it in juries. When
Yeah.
I just boggles my mind, just how much people don't understand what's going on, or they're too fear-filled. It's back to sort of our social structure. So anyway, so those are ways that we can do something,
yeah,
get
with
together
this.
with that. And I want to say the Western New York Peace Center, definitely we would be on board if you're having your list of people on
I
the
mean, we
coalition.
meet by Zoom at least once a month. So, people are welcome. We're a very mixed coalition. We have lawyers, we have social workers, we have justice-involved people, we have people who have, been incarcerated. We have people, religious people. We have all sorts of people. The coalition is quite broad.
Right. And so, Jerome, what would you say
Yes.
for people to get involved with both the HALTsolitary and
well,
no new jails?
No, I'm going to say this, and
Yes.
thank you, Sophie, for what you do, the work you do, because
Thank you.
without having people who have diversified interests, not the run-of-the-mill activist or the angry black man, is very important, man. No, I'm saying because just to go back to 13th Amendment, slavery in its traditional form didn't start till other people start saying it was wrong. We knew it was wrong all along, and we asked it
right.
to stop. It didn't stop till then, and that's what's happening in this. I don't care what battle you pick. There's a campaign. There's a group out here
Right.
fighting anything that may be dear
So
or near
many.
to your heart. I don't want to send you to HALT or send you to treatment. Community not cages. I want you to go where you want to be to fight the battle, because
Sure.
that's the only way you're going to stay engaged and you're going to have a personal
point.
stake in the game. So I'm saying, if you want to fight, contact Vicky and say, how about this? And I can listen. No, I'm telling you. If they contact you and say, how about this? Who's doing something about this? We will direct you to the people
Sure.
that doing something about that. I can give you bit.lys and sign in it all day long. If that's not the fight you want, it's not going to make no
There's
bad
tons
No,
of them,
sure.
all the way
Right.
down to prenatal care and daycare. It goes
Anything,
those are
anything.
huge.
That's
Those are,
everything.
Anything that you want to fight, we got a soldier's
There's
waiting
somebody
for you to
out there
join
we
us.
can
Right.
link you
Let
to.
us know. You know, there's this big thing about say something, see something, say something. My thing for us is see something, do something about it. Don't just say nothing. Do something about it. Step up. And you don't have to listen. Campaigns work in many different ways.
Right.
You don't have to be protesting if your feet hurt.
No,
you don't
no.
have to be going to Albany if
Right.
you don't have a
In a car,
babysitter.
yeah.
Sure.
There are so many ways that you can be making phone calls to your
Right.
your local politicians.
Right.
You could be phone banking. You could be sending email. You could be doing any number of things that you may be already good at or would like to do. This is not a pigeonhole thing. This is all of us using our gifts and abilities to come together and to fight for what we know is right.
Right.
And you can do that. You can do that. You're a good typist. You can take some of these notes. You're somebody who wants to be in the front with a bullhorn. We got one for you. Whatever you want, there's a role for you. Just like there's a fight for you, there's a role for you. The problem is doing nothing gets nothing means everything. And so stop doing nothing. People tell me, oh, you do all this, you do all that, you do all that. You know why? Because if I don't do it, who is?
It doesn't get.
Well, you know what else I want to say? First of all, thank you so much for that. And that is so right. That is so right. There are so many issues. Fortunately or unfortunately for the Western New York Peace Center, we have worked on a lot of them, you know, and as our what do I want to say? Small but mighty is what I sometimes say. But people think it's a lot bigger than it really is because we really are not big, to say the least. But anyway, but the issues are all connected. They are all connected in the ways that we were just talking about. It's about, you know, what is our optic? Is it on nurturing and helping and doing something positive? Or is it on fear inc, punishment and fear instilling and control, you know, control through threat and through violence. So we need to. Yeah, go ahead.
No, we really one last thing. I hate to cut you off because I forgot to say this all day. Economics.
Oh, economics. Absolutely.
We were supposed to talk about it, but I want to say this. I want to say this because you guys don't have the reference that I have for this. I sat in my prison cell and tried to write down every entity who economically benefited from my being incarcerated. Mm-hmm. When I looked at that list, and I'm still adding stuff that I didn't have before because I was in there, not out here to see what contributes, it is an exhaustive list that is still being built. This thing is the underpinnings of the economy in this country. Is a multi-billion-dollar business. So until we decide that that's not where we want our money to go, it is going to continue to be the bane of our existence.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jerome. And I could listen to you all day, but unfortunately, this show is just about coming to an end. We're just on the really final part. So I want to say you're so right about getting people going. And I want to say the other thing is, you know, it feels good to work on things that you believe in. It feels good to be with like-minded people who are working for the same thing. It feels good, and it is good, you know. So, you know, by all means, that people, you know, people will welcome your help with open arms, and we're all in this together. And when we really get somewhere, it will help everyone. The more we work, another world is possible. So I want to say the two of you have done and are doing so much that can make and is making such a difference that we're just so grateful. I am personally grateful to both of you for all your work, and we will get there. I thank you for taking the time to be here today so much. And for all the work that you keep doing. And just remember, we are all in this together, and we are going to get there. So we're this is Talking Peace, and together we've been talking peace in truth and love. Thank you so much. It's a wrap.
Cut.
It's a wrap. Nobody would ever believe that you're not feeling good, Jerome.
I know.
You have the energy. You have that positive energy.
I'm fighting. Believe me, I'm fighting it.
It's the
Thank you,
struggle.
thank you, Vicky, for always,
thank you.
giving voice to the stuff that the major media and everybody else try to run away from. And God, that's why we so duped. We don't have a platform, and I thank you for giving us this platform.
Oh,
and
please.
Sophie, man, please keep doing what you're doing. We
Thank
really
you.
need good attorneys who are fighting the good fight
Yes.
for all of us, and
Okay.
I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, and you let me know, or when you talk with Steve, which I'm sure you do, that I'm happy to go with you all, and the sooner you give me a date, the better.
Right. Okay.
And
Yep,
we
will
can.
do.
I mean, I'm happy to drive. I have a Ford. Not Ford. Listen to me.
You don't know what you got no more?